welcome back to another episode here on M&M Podcasts, episode 63 to be exact. I'm joined by my co-host here on the show, Matt Nicoletti. Matt, how are we going? And another great round of fixtures over the weekend, some huge results.
Yeah, there certainly was. And obviously there were a lot of matches that were postponed due to the weather or moved. And even though we have less games to talk about, there's certain games where we'll probably have more to talk about than we usually do, because there were some massive results and there were a lot that happened in some of these games. And all three leagues have like a specific match or even a couple of matches where there was a lot going on and a lot of great goals and a lot of talking points. So here to break it all down, really. Let's kick it off with, fair enough to say, the biggest result in NPL this weekend. West Canberra Wanderers 3, Belconnen United 2. We'll talk about what that means for the implications in a little bit. A lot to talk about here, so let's get started. The goal scorers were for West Canberra, Poidel, Vlaslovsky and Bailey, and the goal scorers for Belco were Green and Ray. We'll get into how they scored now. Belco opened the scoring after Dustin Wells whipped in the corner, and about three Belco players headed it in a row, I think it was, with Max Green being the third and final to header it in the back of the net. This goal came just after 90 seconds of play. West Canberra wasted no time in equalising, scoring just 5 minutes after conceding with some terrific team play. From deep, Shea Thornton picked a brilliant pass to Jackson Paisley, who squared a ball for Babin Pordell, who hit it first time in the top corner in the box. Heading into halftime, Belco probably just had the upper hand in terms of chances, with Max Green having the best of the chances after the goals, of course. When a cross was whipped into the far post and Green just got there a little too late by literally like a second. It was a very close chance in that first half. Regardless, though, it was a very, very close half between both the sides. Wanderers had two very early opportunities through Poidel. Despite conceding chances early on in the second half, Belco struck back in front 6 minutes in. Bo Harvey whipped in a low cross and Chris Ray hit it first time and struck at the near post. Very well finished. That was Ray's fourth NPL goal in his career. At this point, it was Belco 2-1. There was a bit of pandemonium with an incident, which ended up in quite a few cards. And I believe it ended up with quite a few yellow cards, and it ended up with a red card for West Canberra Wanderers, which was Shea Thornton being sent off at the time. I think Russ, and I think it was Frank Casher on commentary with him, were a bit confused because there were quite a few cards coming out all at the same time. But it ended up with Wanderers going one man down. Despite that, though, it sort of fueled the Wanderers. Belco, obviously, this was such a huge match with heaps of implications. Belco was sort of a little more cautious in that after that, red card, despite having the man up. But Wanderers sort of fueled them in that regard, and they sealed an equaliser in the 80th minute after a cross in the box with the Belco keeper had a challenge with the Wanderers player, and sort of the rebound went to Vlaslovsky, who buried it 2-2 at that point. Pordell had a great chance to put his side in the lead 2 minutes from time, but he made up for it later after Poidell's positioning and pressure in the box, not long after collecting the ball from a cross as he was brought down for a penalty. Angus Bailey stepped up from the spot kick and buried it with a crucial goal for the Wanderers that won them the game. But not long after this, Belco broke and Tyson Livermore hit it past Jacob Wiseman. It looked like it was going in, but I believe it was Connor Bill with the clearance just before the line, and it was a crucial save in the dying embers of the game. This victory for the Wanderers means they are off the bottom of the table and now leapfrog Belconnen and Olympic, I believe, as well, into sixth place. They are now 1 point ahead of Belconnen, and they are ahead of Olympic on goal difference. We should point out, though, that Olympic still have that match in hand as well against O'Connor. Regardless, huge result for the Wanderers, especially with the comeback, being down to 10 men and being down 2-1 at that point as well, to come back and win 3-2 and get them off the bottom of the table for the first time in a while. But now we've literally got 1 point and actually 4 points, I think it is, between 5th and 8th. Obviously, we've still got 4 or 5 games remaining, but and this result won't be the final decision in who goes down. But this was a huge result in West Canberra, considering they have been on the bottom for quite a while. Like I said, Michael, it was quite a lot to break down there. It was an absolute fantastic match watching this live. And everyone that watched it, they were in for a treat. And well done, the West Canberra Wanderers. This was, you could tell the excitement for them. It was they felt like it was a long time coming in terms of Belco. Obviously, it's not a great result, and they'll be looking to bounce back next week. Like I said, this isn't indicative. This isn't like crucial for the whole season, but it is crucial in terms of match to match. And well done to the Wanderers in that regard.
Yeah, but I mean, before we get into the next match, I do want to say that, that was a fantastic result for West Canberra. Obviously, it lifts them off the bottom of the table, as we know, Matt, for the first time in a very long time. And I think that win's going to do them a world of confidence sort of heading into these final parts of the season. And like you said, for Belco, it's just a matter of them just, regrouping and doing everything that they can to ensure that they, survive. And we know that the quality that Belconnen United possess with the talent that they have in their team. So, they'll come back stronger, and we'll just have to wait and see how everything sort of plays out over the next couple of weeks. But nevertheless, we'll move on to the next game that we have, which was another cracker. It was Gungahlin United 2, Monaro Panthers 2, Abbott and Roberts on the score sheet for the home team, and Gabe Cole with a brace for Monaro. So this game was moved to Hawker Football Centre, as we all know, due to the ground closures over the weekend due to the wet weather. This is back-to-back draws for Monaro in the league, after their midweek Australian Cup round of 32 match against Sydney United in between those two results. A couple of milestones as well, Matt, that we should raise before we sort of get into the match. Adam Di Franceschi played his 100th NPL match, so congratulations to him reaching on that milestone. And then on the other side of that, on the opposing team for Gungahlin United, Jack Green, the veteran defender, played his 150th NPL game. So congratulations to him reaching that milestone. 2 milestones for 2 center defensive players there on the day. So that was great to see for the game. And it was obviously an entertaining contest on show from both of these teams. And, it's always sort of proven to be the case when these two, I think in particular, sort of come up against each other, Matt. And I thought Gungahlin, they started off very, very well. And obviously that resulted in them getting the lead in the first 3 minutes through Abbott, and the goal was an excellent goal from, the corner set piece where he sort of just beat his man at the near post and flicked it to the far corner. It was a great header, and that's what gave them the lead. And Monaro, though, they didn't hang their heads, Matt. They got straight back into it. Despite only going 1-0 down in the 3rd minute, they managed to equalise 3 minutes later through Gabe Colin. Oh, my word. What a goal this one was, Matt. It was an absolute cracker from probably around 30, 35 metres out. I'm only just sort of assuming the distance there, but it was an absolute bullet that just found its way into the back of the net. And then from there, sort of both sides traded chances and opportunities in the final third to round out the first period of play. But what sort of shot Monaro in the foot was they weren't able to learn what happened to them at the start of the first half. As, 20 seconds into the second half, Roberts, gets in behind and he produces a nice strike into the far corner just 20 seconds after the second period restart. So again, Monaro just had to sort of, get together and go again and try and get themselves level, which, they were able to do in the dying sort of stages of the game in the 83rd minutes, where they obviously get a penalty awarded to them, and that's where Cole confidently dispatched his penalty from the spot. A 2-2 draw, a really thrilling encounter between these two teams, like I mentioned, Matt. And we're talking about the teams that are 2nd and 3rd in the competition table right now. So it just goes to show the quality that's in the top 4 at the moment. And, this result actually had more of a positive implication for Canberra, Croatia, who are now 8 points clear at the top. And this draw means that Gungahlin are now, they're still 3 points ahead of Monaro, who are in third place still. So, this game had some pretty big implications in terms of, Monaro, if they were able to get a win today, that would have really put them in good stead to get into second spot. But obviously the draw does a little bit of a favor for Gungahlin because it obviously means they can sort of fend off Monaro momentarily, but it obviously affected them in the larger scale of things because they're now 8 points behind Canberra, Croatia, who are sort of sailing at the top of the competition ladder. Matt, and we've got them next up, the team that I just mentioned there, Canberra, Croatia. Let's get into the next game.
Yeah, they were in absolutely stunning form. Literally from the first, 10 minutes of the match, they were just absolutely on fire. Canberra, Croatia opened the scoring early after a brilliant array of quick passing from the league leaders, ended with Stephen Dominici putting a through ball to Nick Taneski, who buried it in the bottom corner. Croatia made it 2-0 after a few minutes later, after a long array of passing from the back of the Deacon defense, passed through the midfield, and a couple of 1-2s and back heels ended with Taneski laying it off to Mate Busek, who hit a beauty in the top right corner from just outside the box. The movement from Croatia off the ball had been outstanding by this point, and so quick as well, their movement with the ball also. Croatia made it 3-0 not too long after, with Tanoski laying it off to Pilkington, who hit an absolute stunner from well outside the box into the top right corner. Croatia were in dreamland by this point and rampant and full of confidence. And that was in the first, 20 minutes or so of the matchup. Mate Busek ran it down the heart of the Tigers defense to make it 4-0 with his brace. There was a great through ball from Dominici to Taneski, who finished it with the outside of his right boot to make it 5-0, and that was his brace by this point. Tanoski made it 6-0 after he did a 1-2 with Dominici and then hit it first time on the volley with a brilliant finish. And Daniel Barach capped it off with a goal to round it off at 7-0. Absolutely electric performance from Canberra, Croatia, especially in that first half. They were just like I said, the movement off the ball. They really feel like they are getting to, like, they just keep growing from strength to strength to strength. And it's probably at the right time, isn't it? Being 4 or 5 matches out from finals time. And like you mentioned before, Croatia now 8 points ahead of Gungahlin United, who are in second place, and 11 points ahead of Monaro, who are in third place. It's going to be very tough for Monaro or Gungahlin to catch Canberra, Croatia for the league title at this point. They just keep going from strength to strength at the moment. It was, but that first half especially Croatia were just on another level. In terms of like first half, like just general game performances and half to half performances. That was one of the best performances I've seen covering the league for the last 3 years, or technically 2 years when you add it all up, when you add the 2 COVID seasons ahead. But I digress. It was one of the best performances, individual half performances and overall overall game performances I've seen while covering this league. In terms of Tigers, obviously not the best day of the office, especially considering they've been in pretty good form recently. Obviously beating Gungahlin, getting the draw with Monaro, where they probably had the better of the first half in that matchup. They've been improving their form, and for them to obviously come up, against a very, very tough Canberra, Croatia side, but to, go down 3-0 in the first 20 or so minutes, and especially the sort of play that Croatia were near unstoppable at that point. So obviously not the best day at the office, but Tigers do still remain just 4 points off O'Connor. O'Connor do have the game in hand, though, as well as Olympic being 3 points off them, who have the game in hand. Wanderers also 3 points off, and Belco are 4 points off. So Tigers are in that sort of, weird position where they could technically be considered in the relegation scrap, but they're only 4 points off O'Connor if Olympic beat O'Connor, and obviously that'll mean Olympic will be back level with Tigers as well. It's just they're in that weird sort of spot at the moment, where so it's going to be crucial games, obviously all around, for the next 4 or 5 matches. But yeah, that weird sort of spot for Tigers, but I'm sure it'll be a day for them to forget. But besides that, though, Jacob Cole did really make some good saves, to be fair. I know it was a bit difficult for him, obviously conceding 7, but there was half those goals. There's not much Jacob Cole could have done about him, because there was some absolutely brilliant strikes, and a lot of the time they were just too quick. So very, very impressive performance from Croatia, and I'm sure Tigers will be looking to bounce back as well as they can next week.
Yeah, so it was O'Connor Knights and Canberra Olympic, like you briefly sort of mentioned there, Matt. The game was postponed due to ground closures due to the wet weather. And whilst we look ahead now to the NPL round 17 fixtures, so that game will obviously be played at some point in the near future, but we'll get into round 17 fixtures. First up, we have Belconnen United versus Gungahlin United, Saturday, August 14th, 3 p.m. at McKellar Park. Follow that by Canberra Olympic up against West Canberra Wanderers, Saturday, 14th of August, 3 p.m. at O'Connor Enclosed. Tigers FC will look to bounce back against the O'Connor Knights, Saturday, August 14th, 3 p.m. at AIS Grassfield 2. And then lastly, we've got a Sunday match, Matt. We've got Canberra, Croatia up against Monaro Panthers. That should be an absolute cracker. Sunday, August 15th, 3 p.m. at Deakin Stadium there. So some cracking games on display for this coming weekend. And let's move on now, Matt, to NPLW, where we kick things off with Canberra, Croatia. A 5-0 victory for them over the Wagga City Wanderers. 4 goals for Brittany Palombi, Matt, and a goal for Grace Gill to cap things off with the 5th goal there in the 90th minute. Obviously, they proved once again, like they have many times this season, that they were just too strong for their opponents on the day, and they showed exactly why they're the top of the league, why they're the team to beat, why they've got so many teams aspiring to be at that level, because they just display a high level and high intensity of play that make it very difficult for teams to deal with. And I mentioned at the top, Matt, the 4 goals from Palombi really highlighted her fantastic performance, and obviously why she's one of the best players in the whole league. And aside from her first strike, which you could say was maybe a little bit fortunate, her other 3 goals were very well taken, like she's managed to produce over the years. All very nice finishes, all confident finishes. She just is very, very good in front of goal. And Grace Gill, I mean, she capped it off with an absolute screamer from outside the box to score the last goal of the game and make it 5-0. So a nice little goal there for Grace Gill to put the exclamation mark on this fixture. Wagga, they set themselves up actually really well in the first half, Matt. They almost, were able to get a share of the spoils going into the break at 0-0. They had managed to put up a decent sort of front and a solid defensive line that Croatia were obviously struggling with to begin with, and to find openings and to really break them down. And that wasn't until, the 41st minute when Palombi was able to score that little bit of a fortunate goal. And I think that'll disappoint Wagga a little bit, that a goal like that was what was their undoing, because then that meant, Canberra, Croatia and Palombi again, she was able to find her second goal a minute later. And just like that, with the click of a finger, it's 2-0, and you find yourself 2 goals down when just a moment ago you were right in the game at 0-0. So that's how quickly things can change. And whilst they went on to lose 5-0, I think it's really important to focus on the fact that, there are some encouraging signs there. They were able to hold Canberra, Croatia out for almost a whole half of football, which will do them a world of good. And I think it will actually help them when they come up against, the other quality opposition in the league, like your Belconnens, like your Olympics, down the line until the season ends. And I think that puts them in really good stead. I think it's a really good learning experience for them, and they can really take that and, like I said, use that in the matches that they've got for the rest of the season.
Next up is West Canberra Wanderers and Canberra United Academy. Another absolutely fantastic game. A lot of goals in this one. We had Tara Cannon scoring a brace, Ginger Oliver and Sarah Whitfield and Daisy Canavan with the goals for the Wanderers. And then we had Highmarsh, Coleman and Gregson with the goals for the CUA. This is how it went down. Tara Cannon got on the end of a brilliant free kick from Daisy Canavan to put her side in the lead. And that was the Wanderers, of course. Hindmarsh equalised to make it 1-1 for CUA 10 minutes later when she struck a free kick right above the keeper. Great technique there from Hindmarsh. Coleman put CUA in the lead on the brink of halftime after a battle for the ball fell in her path unmarked, and she wasted no time to finish that one. Immediate response from the Wanderers to go back level 2-2 when Ginger Oliver struck a brilliant curling corner from the far post. Very, very good goal there from the Wanderers player. It was the Wanderers that opened the score in the second half to make it 3-2 as Sarah Whitfield hit a bullet of a header from a cross in the back of the net. Gregson leveled it for CUA at 3-3 at this point when she got on the end of a low cross that sneaked past the keeper. Wanderers took back the lead, though, made it 4-3 as Daisy Canavan finished off a cross from a free kick. Wanderers sealed an insane game at 5-3 2 minutes later as Tara Cannon struck first time from receiving a ball once again from a free kick for her brace. Huge victory for the Wanderers as this puts their 7-game winless run and 4-game streak of losses to an end. And they also go back to being 9 points ahead of Gungahlin in 4th place, with Gungahlin, of course, having a game in hand. Overall, though, well done to the Wanderers for the win and getting that monkey off their back per se. We talked about at the start of the season, they were in great form, and recently they haven't been in great form, like I mentioned there, but this is a huge win for them, like we said. Obviously, Gungahlin do have the chance to make it 6 with their match in hand, but regardless, Wanderers have to do their part, and they did their part by getting back in the winner's circle. CUA fought back several times in this one. Very close game, very competitive game. They took what was important here for CUA was they took advantage of a lot of opportunities here and a lot of opportunities, and that's obviously very important for a young side with their growth in the game. This loss did mean that they didn't take the chance of leapfrogging Gungahlin in 5th place, as they remain 1 point behind them in 6th, and they are now 6 points ahead of Tuggies, who also have a game in hand. Another milestone in this one, Demi Nikias of West Canberra Wanderers played her 100th NPLW game. Congratulations to her on that milestone, and what a way to celebrate it with her side being back in the winner's circle. All right, the other 2 games that were postponed were Belconnen United and Gungahlin United, postponed due to ground closures, wet weather. Canberra Olympic against Tuggeranong United as well, postponed due to ground closures, wet weather. The fixtures for this weekend are Tuggeranong United versus Canberra, Croatia. Friday, August 13th, prime time at 7:45 p.m. Canberra 201. I believe this will be the first game under the lights at Canberra that they just got installed a month or so back. Well done to Stan Mitchell and Tuggeranong United for getting those lights organised and bringing more regular nighttime football down there at Canberra. Obviously, they've had a few nighttime matches, but that was at Greenway. Canberra obviously had a few renovations with the pitch and the lights, so that's good to see. Canberra Olympic against Belconnen United, Sunday, August 15th, 2:30 p.m. at O'Connor Enclosed. It's always a big game there, and of course a rematch of the Fed Cup final. Wagga City Wanderers against West Canberra Wanderers, the Battle of the Wanderers, Sunday, August 15th, 2:30 p.m. at Gissing Oval. Let's see what will happen there in a big match there, the Battle of the Wanderers. And Canberra United Academy against Gungahlin United, Sunday, August 15th, 5:10 p.m. at Hawker Football Centre. Only one match between those two teams. So that should be an absolute cracker there. Obviously, with Gungahlin having a one match in hand, but it should be a very interesting one there.
And now moving on to CPL action, Matt. We had Weston Molonglo pick up a huge, huge win in their season against Wagga City Wanderers, 5-0 to the home team. It was Sellers with a hat trick, Redmond and Paget on the score sheet for the hosts. It obviously got moved to Hawker Football Centre due to the ground closures of the wet weather that took place over the weekend that we've mentioned a few times already. And Western Molonglo, they struck 5 minutes before halftime through Sellers, giving them the lead. Heading in, and there would have been a real boost of momentum, before the next 45 minutes. 15 minutes in, 15 minutes in, into the second half, and Redmond scored their first of 4 goals in the second half, which just goes to show the sort of energy that they were able to bring out after getting that crucial goal just before half time. And, Sellers scored 2 more, to round out his hat trick, and Paget also got himself on the scoreboard too. So, a very good day in the office for Western Molonglo. It's obviously an emphatic victory, and, and what a way for them to record their first points of the season, Matt. Their first victory, their first points, and you couldn't have done it in better style. And, the joy that was, at Melrose on the weekend, encapsulates how hard they've worked through a very difficult seasons with, they've had to deal with a numerous amount of, hurdles, and credit to them for just keeping at it, persevering, always trying hard. And now they've got their reward, between, no points until now, injuries, players sort of leaving, the coach leaving, players like Ashley Blout, stepping in, to take charge in the interim. It's been a tough season for the Magpies, but well done to them for, like I said, persevering and getting through it. And the reward is that they were able to get their first win of the season. So well done to them. On the other side of that, though, Wagga was stunned, but at Hawker Synthetic, Matt, by the other team with black and white stripes. Not the best day in the office for David Leonard's side, conceding 5 and not being able to find the back of the net. This loss snapped their 4-game win streak as well, from the River Arena that they were enjoying. It's obviously not all doom and gloom for Wagga, as they've still got that recent form to really count on. And, it gives them a bit of cushion as they're still in 4th place, 4 points ahead of Brindis. So at least there's a little bit of a silver lining there, that they have a bit of a cushion in terms of maintaining their top 4 spot. And ANU, have gone now 3 points ahead of Wagga in 3rd. And, they'll be looking to bounce back next week in the River Arena derby. And there's no better game to try and, bounce back in. A derby is the perfect way to, get back on track. And they can, not hang their heads too low from a result like this. I know that, no one maybe would have been expecting it, but nevertheless, they were in good form before that, winning 4 in a row. And they've just got to be able to channel that form back in for the derby, because it'll be a huge, huge game. Matt, who do we have next up?
Next up, huge result for ANU over at Hawker Football Centre. 6-1 over Queanbeyan City. Alna Wasia with a brace. Monty Grace with a goal. Chase Deans with a goal. Spears and Carl Hines as well with a goal. Michael Piccolo scoring for Queanbeyan City. This one, like I said just then, was moved to Hawker Football Centre due to ground closures and wet weather. Queanbeyan opened the scoring through a great piece of team play, passing through the midfield and defence before a low cross was put to Michael Piccolo, who came in and hit it first time in the bottom corner. ANU hit back, and 3 minutes later, Hassan Al-Nuasir, as he neatly struck a free kick and looped it in the bottom right corner. Really nice free kick there from Al-Nuasir. Just before halftime, ANU struck in quick succession to give themselves the lead, and huge momentum heading into the break. Monty Grace made it 2-1 with an absolute belter of a goal from outside the box into the top left corner. As I was saying about the wet weather round and all the changes that just have brought us absolutely fantastic goals this weekend. A lot of strikes from well outside the box. This was, of course, followed by Chase Deans, who calmly stepped up to convert a penalty to make it 3-1 for his 11th goal of the season. Al-Nuwasir opened the scoring in the second half for his brace as he cut back across his marker and struck a low shot between the Queanbeyan defense to hit the bottom corner. Spears made it 5-1. He got on the end of a cross and he was unmarked, and he wasted no time and placed the ball in the back of the net. Monty Grace nicely won back the ball in midfield and put in a nice through ball to Carl Hines. Looked like it came off the boot of a defender to Hines, but Hines got on the end of it and buried it to make it 6-1. Very, very impressive and emphatic performance from ANU. This victory puts them 3 points ahead of Wagga in third place and 2 points off Queanbeyan City as well. Not a great day at the office for Queanbeyan, despite that early start and good lead. At one point, they did have a sin bin as well, but they didn't concede during that time, so they had a bit to fight for there, and they had also an injury, so hopefully that's all good in that regard. The ANU were just too good for Queanbeyan on the day, but unfortunately for Queanbeyan, though, this loss means they now trail Tuggeranong by 7 points, and their rivals for promotion still have a match in hand. They do have the chance to close the gap, though, this weekend as they take on Tuggies at home in High Street, but yeah, unfortunately for them, not the best of form to head into that matchup against Tuggies. But like we said, they'll be looking to sort of turn around their fortunes. And I think it's safe to say this is a must-win game for Queanbeyan at High Street. So it'll be a huge one there at High Street on Saturday. But such a huge result and some absolutely cracking goals that we saw there at Hawker Football Centre. What do we have next up?
Next up, we have Yoogali up against Tuggeranong United. It was the visitors that came away from this match, Matt, with a 3-0 victory. Mbogo, Walker, and Hislop on the score sheet for Mitch Stevens' side. You know, they opened the scoring through Mbogo, you know, who got on the end of a corner and won the scramble to put his side in the lead. And, you know, this was his first goal of the CPL season, you know, 19 minutes into the game. And, you know, Tuggies broke, you know, very quickly on the counter with a lot of pace and, you know, with some neat passing in the lead up. And, you know, before the ball, you know, being squared across the keeper into the feet of, you know, Sam Walker for his 17th goal of the season. I mean, he's had an absolutely exceptional season in CPL this year. And, you know, I believe this also makes him the current leading goal scorer in the CPL as of right now, Matt. So he's been firing on all cylinders for Tuggeranong United. And Mitch Stevens' side, you know, they sealed the victory through, you know, another quick piece of play, which led to, you know, which had the keeper from Yoogali, you know, saving the shot, but the rebound fell to Patrick Hislop, you know, who was there at the right place at the right time to make it 3-0. And, you know, it's a huge victory for them, Matt, you know, as they now go 7 points clear at the top of the CPL, you know, with a game in hand as well. So, you know, they face Queanbeyan this weekend in what's going to be a huge matchup. And I mean, if they win this weekend, they're just going to make that gap just too big between themselves and Queanbeyan of, you know, giving sort of Queanbeyan that slightest bit of hope that they might be able to catch them. And I mean, anything can happen in football. We all know that, but it will make their chances very, very difficult. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But that's going to be an absolutely exceptional game. And, you know, if Tuggeranong, you know, they come out of that with a result, you know, heading into the White Eagles, you feel, you know, that their chances for promotion are going to be heightened, you know. So it's a huge fortnight ahead for Tuggeranong in terms of like their prospects of getting back into the NPL. Obviously, after being relegated last season, you know, for Yoogali, you know, it's always tough, you know, coming up against an inform, you know, Tuggy side. You know, this loss means now that, you know, they're 10 points off the top four with 5 games remaining. And, they're going to look to bounce back against, their Riverina rivals in the derby that we had mentioned just previously, Matt, next week in Wagga. So that's going to be an entertaining game for those that reside in that area of the CPL region. And obviously, we were meant to have White Eagles up against Brindabella Blues, but that match did not go ahead because of, due to the wet weather, the grounds were closed. So that match did not go ahead. That will be postponed and played at a later date. Matt, do you want to get into the round 17 CPL fixtures before we sign off?
Certainly, the CPL round 17 fixtures, Wagga City Wanderers against Yoogali, the Riverina Derby, Saturday, August 15th, 2:15 p.m. at Gissing Oval. Should be a cracking matchup there. Weston Molonglo against Canberra White Eagles, the battle for Woden Park enclosed. Saturday, August 14th, 2:45 p.m. at Woden Park enclosed. Brindabella Blues against ANU, Saturday, August 14th, 3 p.m. at Ipen Park in Corwell. And then, of course, the big one, Queanbeyan City against Tuggeranong United, Saturday, August 14th, 3 p.m. at High Street. Tuggeranong United 7 points out at the moment, still have a match in hand. So even though, like you said, even though anything can happen in football, you would think this probably needs to be a must win for Queanbeyan City. So a lot of big matches this weekend in CPL and all around the capital. Any final words, Michael? This was, despite less games, we still had some probably even more entertaining games to make up for it.
Yeah, I was going to say it was fairly entertaining, Matt. Some huge results, like we mentioned at the top of the show. A lot of, implications placed on different teams in terms of what it means for their season, and particularly those in and around, the top four. And as we're sort of getting closer to finals football, I mean, it's only going to continue from now until the end of the season. So I think it'd be silly of us not to expect anything to sort of come up over the next sort of 3 to 5 weeks heading into finals time, Matt. But look, that's all we have time for today. Matt, thank you as always for joining me, and we'll be back again to dissect the next round of fixtures. But in the meantime, catch you later.